that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 356th edition of Energy Week with George Harvey, me, the not very amazing, and Tom Fennell, the amazing.
In the flesh.
In the flesh, which is what he always says, unless I say it first. I'm going to start out by saying, you might not know, but we have come about that close to meeting our fundraising goal for BCTV.
That's good news.
Yeah, it's very, very close. And I'm going to make an appeal this time because actually by the time this goes up, January will be practically over.
Yeah.
We need about $35. And, you know, I can arrange for that. But nevertheless, if people want to donate, BCTV is charging us, or is asking us to raise $480 a year for this show, which is not very much when you consider the cost of a TV show.
Oh, no.
You know, I mean, that's less than $10 per show. And what I want to do now is I want to tell people if they want to donate to BCTV to support Energy Week, this is something they can just continue doing. Go to BrattleBoroTV.org and make a donation. And when you make the donation and fill in the amount, down a little bit below it on the screen is a place where you can put in a comment and you could say this is for Energy Week. But I want to point out,
if we get enough money, George and I can go on a cruise.
well, that's not quite true because we don't get the money. But the thing is, I want to appeal to everybody who is not watching this at BCTV and not online, getting it online, because a lot of people do those. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of stations
that watch this
that
online,
have this available, and it costs them money, even though they're not paying for the show. They have to. It costs them money to put anything
just to put
up.
it online. Yeah.
So you could make a donation for your local TV, a public access TV station, and make a note to them that this is to support Energy Week, or that you like Energy Week, or whatever you want. Because if they get feedback on the show that's positive, and of course, if you tell them you hate the show, it might not do anything in our favor. But if they get positive feedback, especially with donations, it means that that show will probably, or at least have a better chance to stay on where you are. So much for that. Energy Week is made up of snippets of news for over a week period, and they come from my blog, geoharvey.com, GeoHarvey. We're starting this week on January 23rd. If you hear about something that you like, that you're interested in seeing more of, you can go to the blog, geoharvey.com, and click on the date. We'll try to keep you up to date on which shows or on what dates, and then find the show, because there's only about 15 shows to choose from.
Some of them are well worth looking at. If you got the time, it's time well spent.
Yep.
And I'll try and call your attention to some of the better ones.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Should we just charge ahead?
Let's get started here. We got a picture coming up.
We do.
And
who is this guy?
It's Bonnie Prince Charlie.
Bonnie Prince Charlie. It's Prince Charlie. I don't know how Bonnie is.
Well, I wonder why he's got such red cheeks. A lot of British people do. I always thought it was from sitting around a coal stove getting their faces warm.
Yeah, well, when I was a kid, and princes don't necessarily get things any better than anybody else. When I was a kid and I lived in the UK, I remember my father telling me there's a reason why the English kids have rosy red cheeks. It's because the rooms they play in are 45 degrees.
Well, we're sort of thinking in the same area.
And you know, my parents in the UK knew one person who had central heating. Now, this is common today, but
it isn't all that common still.
It's much more
much more
common.
than it used to be. But, yeah.
But they knew one person with central heating, and he would brag that he could keep his entire house at 56. Okay, here is an article from CNN, January 23rd. What's the title?
Prince Charles, we need a new economic model or the planet will burn.
Wait a minute.
Whoa.
Only a revolution. This is a revolutionary prince. A very
revolutionary
interesting
statement.
Yeah, but he is a revolutionary prince. This is a very interesting concept. Only a revolution in the way global economy and financial markets work can save the planet.
He's absolutely right.
From the climate crisis and secure future prosperity, warned Prince Charles, a lifelong environmentalist, the heir to the to the British throne, spoke in an interview with CNN, which is a pretty unusual thing. That picture, by the way,
I'll get it up again.
the background of that looks like he's probably talking at Davos, which is in Switzerland, at the economic thing there.
Yeah, he was there.
Yeah. So what do you got on that?
Well, there's a 5.5-minute video link
Yeah.
from this CNN site,
Yeah.
which is the same link in the next one, which is also from CNN.
Yep.
But in this 5.5-minute video, you will see the prince talking. It's about him.
Yeah.
He's saying basically what we've already said, only it's taken him 5.5 minutes to say it.
You might say the prince is a little slow.
Well, this is a little bit of what he has to say, because he's on the money. We can't go on like this. With every month, another record in temperatures are being broken. If we leave it too long, as we have been doing, just growing things is going to become difficult.
Yeah.
Charles threw down a challenge to the global business and financial elites to lead to a paradigm shift.
A paradigm.
Paradigm shift. One that inspires action at revolutionary levels and pace to avert the approaching climate catastrophe. And we're going to visit that one in the very next
one. This is also from CNN, and this is not exactly a response to the prince, but it's
definitely related. I mean, one
it
leads
sure
right
is,
into
and
the
it
other.
tells you part of the problem with dealing with this.
I'm going to get rid of Charlie.
Okay.
Top U.S. bankers don't want to lead the climate fight.
Yeah. Okay. While professing deep concern about global warming, top executives of the World Economic Forum, again in Davos, expressed reluctance to act as referees in financial markets to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. That, they said, is not their role, despite calls to stop funding climate-intensive industries. They're loaning money to coal burning for construction of coal burning power plants, and
this from a reality standpoint, it doesn't make sense.
No,
But
it
from the
doesn't.
standpoint of making money for the people who own the resources, it makes a lot of sense.
No, I disagree, because they should know that they are putting money into financing bonds for organizations that are going to go out of business, leaving
them
stranded assets.
Yeah.
In other words, those bonds, those stranded assets are going to sell off. And what are they going to sell for?
They're going to go down. They're
Exactly.
Lose money on it.
Exactly. Yeah. They could lose a lot of money on this. It doesn't make sense. But they have this ingrained idea that their job is their job, and that's what their job is. And they have to meet their business plan, and the business plan says you do whatever you need to do to make money.
Well, it's all short term. I mean, they look at the now, and the now stops tomorrow.
And why is it that American banks are particularly vulnerable to this problem and European banks are not?
Probably because they're investors.
I
don't know, but who invests in American banks? I
don't know.
In any case, in the previous article, we referred to a bunch of links to some videos.
Yep.
The same links are on this
Yeah.
site because it's also CNN. Interesting 2-minute video there, though.
Oh.
Greta, you know Greta.
Greta. What a name.
She's countering Trump. Trump has made about 10 statements. She takes every one of these statements
Apart.
and drills them.
Yes. Greta Thunberg is not somebody I would want to contend with.
She's a bulldog.
Bulldog. She turned 17, by the way.
Yeah, she just did.
She still
Well,
looks
Wall
like
Street, I got a little
younger than
takeaway
that.
here. Wall Street is coming around to the idea that the climate crisis is a huge financial risk, as you just tried to say.
Yeah.
But America's most powerful bankers don't want to lead the way in tackling it. However, the world's largest asset manager, BlackRock, will ditch investments that it considers a risk to sustainability, including thermal coal producers. So he's marching to a different drummer.
Yeah. Well,
He's going to make out. The other
Yeah.
guys are going to lose,
Yeah.
just as you said.
BlackRock. Do you suppose that was named after coal?
I don't think so, but it might have been.
It might have been. Well, we have an American coal company called Black Diamond
Yeah.
or Black Jewel. Black Jewel. Black Jewel.
Is it Black Jewel?
I forget.
Whatever.
But it's, you know,
Not doing too well.
I think every major coal company in the United States has either stopped business altogether or is bankrupt.
Bankrupt, yeah. Well,
You know.
I wonder why.
Okay, we have an item with a
another
picture.
picture coming up here.
I'm getting bored of pictures of Teslas. I really am. You know, I go to Clean Technica every day, and I look at the articles they've put up, and it seems like half of them have something to do with Tesla.
Well,
And
we'll be talking about that.
we will, and this actually tells you a little bit of why. And this article came from the BBC.
That one happens to be a Tesla Model 3, in case you don't know.
Yeah.
And that's the mass production model.
Which
isn't it?
has, you'll notice on the left side rear, to the left of the license plate area, there are Chinese characters on that Tesla.
Yes, there are. Yeah, I can see it up here. I can't see it on my screen.
That first character looks like it might be middle, which would be of the term Middle Kingdom, which is China.
You know a little bit of Chinese, huh?
About, well, I'm not on TV, but if you put your finger about a millimeter
Well, I'll give
from
you
your
a
thumb
shot,
that
Kitty.
much, you know, that's about how much I know. Okay.
Well, anyhow, after you've ogled the Model 3 there,
Yeah.
Tesla overtakes Volkswagen as its value hits $100 billion. And there's more on that.
Tesla has displaced VW as the world's second most valuable car maker after dramatic rise in share price pushed the market value to more than $100 billion. Tesla shares rose 4% on Wednesday, making its valuation second only to Toyota. And today, in the news, it said there was a thing that said Tesla the value has gone up another $4.5 billion or something like that.
So
And
now
it's
they got GM, Ford, and Chrysler beat.
together.
Together.
It's worth more than GM, Ford, and Chrysler put together.
But Toyota's still worth more.
Toyota's worth more than the
$230 billion.
Yeah,
they're worth.
more than the four of them
Yeah.
put together. Toyota is a big company.
It is quite big.
Yeah.
But let's move on here to Friday, January 24th.
Okie dokie.
And we got the New York Public Service Commission approves a measure to lower costs for clean energy.
This is from the Natural Resources Defense Council. The Public Service Commission issued an order allowing New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, which is commonly called, and it actually is commonly called NYSERDA,
NYSERDA, right.
to offer a new contracting mechanism. The takeaway on this is that this change will make it cheaper and easier for New York to meet its clean energy goals.
I read the article, and it's kind of complicated.
Yeah, well, this is an economic thing. It basically says, okay, how expensive it's going to be has a lot to do with the economic way that you do it.
Well, it seemed from what I read the article, instead of guaranteeing a set return on your money for investment in renewable, they're putting in an index structure which adjusts for the market.
Right.
And it's expected to reduce financing costs for renewable energy
Right,
projects.
yeah.
So if you're making money, well, people are going to be more willing to invest in you, and the financing costs are going to go down.
Right.
That seems to be what I read out of it.
That's what
As
I got
said,
out
it's
of it.
just complicated.
Yeah, it's complicated. And you know, this is an area of life in which a tweak can change everything. And
Oh yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
it's a big deal.
Let's move along. We got another.
We
picture
have a picture
coming
here.
up. This is what the Irish call turf.
Turf?
Turf, yeah. And believe it or not, they actually eat it.
They eat it.
Well, it's not nourishment. It's kind of a
Way of cleaning out your insides? I don't know.
No, they just take it's kind of a thing, you know. They don't eat enough
Is that
of it.
why their hair is red?
They don't eat enough of it to make a difference, but they do eat it. Well, what they're talking about here in Finland, Ireland does the same damn thing. They make energy
from peat.
turf.
Yeah.
So carbon neutral in 15 years, the country with an ambitious plan, and they're talking about Finland.
Yep. Finland has pledged to be carbon neutral by 2035. That is twice as fast as the UK government target, but to achieve this, they will have to make big changes, particularly in the peat industry. I don't think about a peat industry very much, do you?
Well, I do because I've seen it in action in Ireland, where they make power out of peat.
That industry currently provides energy, heating, and jobs, and that will make it a hard goal to achieve. This is from the BBC.
Well, peat is a form. I'll put the picture up.
It's almost like coal.
Well, it's on its way to becoming coal.
Yeah.
I mean, peat is a
dirty
form
coal.
of decayed vegetation.
Which
it's
is
a swamp.
Is
okay?
what basically.
This stuff-
It's a swamp. Maybe that's what Donald Trump wanted to dig up in Washington.
Well, when you what they do is they'll take this peat, which we'd find in any swamp here. It's just decayed vegetation.
It's just decayed vegetation.
And they dry it.
Yeah.
And then they burn it.
Yeah.
And they use it to heat their homes. And in Finland and in Ireland, they use it in commercial quantities to generate power.
Right.
Because neither country has coal.
Yeah.
Okay. But unfortunately, it's dirtier than coal when you're burning it.
Very smoky.
And even after you take the peat out of the bog and extract it and burn it, the drained bogs continue to emit previously locked in centuries-old Greenland gases. This is greenhouse gases.
Yeah.
This is not a good idea.
Well,
It's all they had.
yeah.
But
if you're living in the 8th century and you have a house that's made out of wattle and daub, you know what wattle and daub is?
Yeah.
You build a frame and then you fill in the holes in the frame with
twigs,
woven
basically.
twigs,
Yeah.
and then cover that with mud, and that's
yeah.
your house.
they
And-
call those woven twigs wattle.
Yeah.
And the daub is the clay that they
Yeah.
smear on the outside
Well,
of it.
if that's what
Actually,
you've
it works
got,
pretty well.
it
if you
works pretty well.
Don't have a wet climate.
Yeah, and it has a it-
Doesn't hold up too well under hurricanes.
Well, no, I don't think it does, but it goes up fast. If your house is knocked down, you build another one.
Build another one.
If in those days, peat was probably an acceptable way to, I don't even know if it was that acceptable in those days, because 8th century, they didn't even have chimneys in those days. They didn't have fireplaces. The fire was in the middle of the
I was
house.
in the middle of the house. You're right.
And they would cook outdoors in order to avoid the smoke. And the smoke was said to be good in the winter because it would kill the vermin. And it was like, wait a minute, if it's going to kill the vermin, what's it going to do to you? Anyway,
Well, let's move along here.
okie doke.
What the minimum offer price rule, which is called the MOPR, means for clean energy.
This is from Resources Magazine, PJM, which coordinates the movement of wholesale electricity in all parts of 13 states and D.C. That, by the way, includes where we are, as I recall.
No, we're not in that one.
We're not. We're in ISO New England.
Yes.
Ah, yes, you're right.
I'll explain what that is after
Okay.
you finish.
Submitted a proposed MOPR, minimum order offer price rule, which in its last filing is required by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. They will support fossil fuels and raise costs for consumers.
Well, I'll explain a little bit here.
Yeah, this
PJM
yeah.
comes from the words Pennsylvania, Jersey, Maryland,
Oh, okay.
which was the original name of this system operator.
Okay.
Okay, it's now in 13 states, only parts of 13 states.
Yes.
Just a little smidgen of Michigan, for example.
Does it include Illinois?
Most of Illinois, yeah. But
Yeah,
it's
that's the
scattered
one-
throughout.
We've got
The
we've-
system operator, they're all over America.
Yeah.
And Canada, okay?
Yeah.
And they kind of how would you say it? They dispatch the power.
Yes.
Okay, they don't generate power. They don't make it or anything. They could probably do everything they're doing out of a laptop.
Well, I don't know, but
They're just coordinating power.
coordinating
Who wants
power.
it? Who's making it? And they connect.
they're ordering the power and dispatching it to the
and moving it
users,
moving it
which
along.
means that they have an enormous area that they have to control. And the whole reason for this is because the amount of power electricity that's being used has to equal the amount that's being generated.
I can almost say duh for that.
Well, you know, I mean, it's getting more complicated because we have batteries now. So you can generate more than you need and charge the battery, but that really makes the battery just part of the load.
It's part of the whole set.
Yeah, and what these PJM and ISO New England and what they're doing is they're telling various generators, you need to make more or you need to make less.
That's exactly what they're doing.
Whatever.
Yep. That's exactly what they're doing.
And go ahead, Tom.
Well, FERC directed PJM to significantly expand its minimum offer price rule to mitigate the impacts of renewable energy credits on the capacity
I want
market.
to point out they're expanding the rule.
Yeah.
The rule is what's being expanded here. And that makes the rule bigger. The rule is bigger. Go ahead, Tom.
There's a backstory here. At least according to environmental organizations, they claim that the order is arbitrarily discriminating against clean energy resources in favor of incumbent fossil generation.
Have you seen the amounts that they're charging for various types of energy here?
I probably didn't.
I saw them, and
it's in there on a graph, isn't it?
Yeah, something like that. And it's mind-boggling. It's so complicated. But for each type of generation, they've got a minimum amount of money that is allowed to be charged for it. So if you're making solar power, there is a minimum. You have to charge a minimum. There's only one...
Somebody's playing games.
Yeah. There's only one way to get around this. And you know, the minimum for natural gas is lower than the minimum for wind power or whatever. I'm using that as an example. I don't know for a fact that's what it is. But the idea is, if a state has laws and a structure that allow it to foster or bolster renewable energy, then that state under the FERC ruling has to charge more. They have to charge extra to make up for the fact that they're incentivizing it.
So, so...
And it's the federal government...
They're taking the incentive right out.
That's exactly it. They want to destroy the incentives. And the federal government, and there were 3 people on FERC, and the law says there's supposed to be 5, but there have to be an even number as close as you can get to people from both major political parties. And this is supposed to be politics neutral. But there's
not.
The one person who is Democrat said, FERC here, and this is a person who voted against this, the other 2 voted for, she said, this is absolutely illegal. This is an illegal interference by the federal government in the state government's activities. And that, by the way, flies in the face of states' rights, which is a conservative thing.
Absolutely.
And
the article talks about that. This is a long and interesting article.
It's long, it's complicated.
But if you got the time, it's worth looking at.
This is the federal government actively involving itself in trying to prevent renewable energy from coming online.
That's basically what's going on. Well, they're trying to protect coal.
Okay. Yes, indeed. Let's protect
clean coal.
Let's protect a few other things here. Look, we've got computers. What we should have is manual typewriters. Wait a minute. I'm sorry. We should add to that a few other things. But just consider this. A manual typewriter, an adding machine, and a slide rule is cheaper than a computer.
It is, absolutely. But let's move along here. We got another picture coming up.
Okay, we do. We have a picture of a wind farm.
Well, it's not just a wind farm. It's an onshore wind farm.
That's right. And by the way, we have moved to Saturday, January 25th.
We have.
And this is from
Time
Renews.
flies when you're having fun.
It sure does. This is from Renews.
50 hertz, which is the name of a company, by the way,
Yeah.
to turn wind into heat in Rostock, which is a town in northern Germany.
Yeah. So 50 hertz, by the way, is it's the utility that covers all of what used to be East Germany.
Okay.
Okay?
Well, 50 hertz is the normal frequency they generate electricity at in Europe. We generate it at 60 hertz.
At 60, but they do it at 50, which is...
Doesn't make any difference. You just have... American clocks don't work very well in Europe.
With a 20-hour day. Oh, my gosh. Let me read this. This is from Renews. Some wind energy generated in northern Germany can't be consumed or transported south. They haven't got transmission lines.
They don't have the transmission lines. Right.
So, and they can't consume it. So this is the thing we were just talking about. The amount that's used has to equal the amount generated. So what they do is they tell the wind turbines to shut down. 50 hertz transmission is working with Stadtwerke Rostock to turn it into heat.
That's, by the way, the equivalent of the Department of Public Works.
Stadtwerke, yeah. Yep. To turn it into heat to be used by our utility. The two companies are building a 20-megawatt power-to-heat plant in Rostock's Mariana, I won't even try, district. I tried for a while to figure out how this heat was going to be used, and I didn't get it. But, do you have anything on this?
Yeah, they're going to, well, they call it a utility. The Department of Public Works is going to power its buildings with this heat.
Okay. Department of Public Works is going to power its buildings with that
Its
heat.
operations.
Its operations, okay. I couldn't tell if this was going to be released to, subscribers or what.
No, it's not that much. It really isn't that much heat.
20 megawatts would heat a bunch of buildings.
It's going to heat a bunch of buildings, but,
Yeah.
the Department of Public Works right here in Brattleboro has got a bunch of buildings.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Well, existing bottlenecks in the transmission network create surplus electricity. They can't get it where they need it because they don't have the lines.
Right.
Okay, so rather than shutting down the generators, they're utilizing the heat. Instead of buying diesel fuel or whatever, they're using the heat.
If you don't have the demand and you can't transmit the power, what do? You create demand, and that demand takes other sources of energy out of the picture.
Yeah,
so instead of burning oil or gas or whatever,
they're using
the heat.
So they're ahead of the game.
Yeah.
They could be storing it, but in this particular case,
yeah, they could store it in batteries or as hydrogen or whatever. Okay.
Well, we got another one coming up here. Is Spain closes 2019 with a nearly half renewable energy mix. They're ahead of the game.
This is from Sour Energy. According to data furnished by the Red Eléctrica de España, the operator of the Spanish electricity grid.
That's like the ISO.
Yeah.
Independent System Operator.
Yeah.
The same thing.
Installed non-polluting power capacity in Spain grew by 10% during 2019, which I don't think is very much growth. That's not a huge amount of growth. But it brought Spain to the point where renewable energy now represents 49.3% of the total installed generation capacity in the country.
Close to half, baby.
It is, but people should understand this in context. The capacity of solar or wind, and particularly solar, even in a sunny place like
so we're talking about
Spain,
capacity here.
Yeah, is not going to produce as much electricity as the same amount of capacity if it's nuclear or coal or even natural gas.
Yeah, right, because the capacity is the maximum.
Right, and we have capacity.
If the wind doesn't blow, you can have all the capacity in the world. You're not generating any electricity.
That's right.
So they've added 5 new green gigawatts, though. And as I've said before, gig means big.
Big, that's right. Although I got to tell you, Tom, there was a story in the news today. They're talking about 600 and some odd or 700 and some odd. I don't remember who was it who was projecting this? One of the big companies is projecting something like 650 gigawatts of wind capacity will be installed. It was Navigant Systems.
That's a lot.
Yeah, over the next 8 years.
Wow. Well, what the article is saying here is electricity generation in Spain is increasingly more and more renewable.
Yeah.
Solar PV grew 66% compared to 2018.
This is 66% growth. This is why I said 10% isn't all that much.
Wind added more than 1.6 gigawatts of new capacity.
That's a lot.
And closure of a coal-fired station reduced 350 megawatts of polluting generation.
Yep.
So they're moving in the right direction.
They're moving along.
And you know, it's economics that's doing it.
Well, yes, it is, very largely. Okay. That, by the way, was from Sour Energy, S-A-U-R Energy.
And we got another picture.
We have a
coming up
picture here.
And that is, I think, a
Solar farm. Yep. Although if you ask Google Images to identify the thing, sometimes very often it'll tell you what solar farm it is. A picture like that, sometimes it can't.
That's a pretty big solar farm. Where is that? Do you have any idea?
No, I don't. But you know, if you ask Google to identify it, sometimes it'll look at a picture like that and say roof. So
well, what it says here is NextEra, which is a company, looks to add batteries to its existing solar fleet.
This is really interesting to me. Green Tech Media carried this. NextEra Energy, which is an American energy company, is combing through its base of existing solar facilities with an eye to retroactively add batteries as it adopts a more aggressive view to energy storage because of its falling costs. The company is expanding after experience it had with a system that was built in 2018. And that system
it makes sense. They've got the generating capacity.
Yeah.
So they're deciding to store it.
Yeah.
Store the surplus so they can...
We're back to that same thing. The energy the demand has to be met by what is generated, and the way, if you've got too much generation, you have to cut it off.
If you can save it, you're way ahead of the game.
It just makes
makes sense.
Their current investment all the more valuable.
Absolutely.
Which is the opposite of the stranded asset. If you want to look at that
well,
way.
you mentioned that NextEra Energy is an American company.
Yeah.
It's America's leading wind and solar generator.
Yes.
Okay. They added 2.7 gigawatts, gigs is big,
yes,
of new renewables to its fleet in 2019.
Yes.
So they're growing. They're big and they're growing. They say, and this makes sense, they increasingly see storage as an important standalone business in its own right.
Oh, absolutely.
With batteries allowing for the supply of near-firm renewable power. And they tell us what near-firm means.
This is firm.
We're going to talk about that later.
Yeah,
because
firm
is
a word that's used more and more. If it's firm, that means that it's always there. It's kind of like baseload power, except that firm power is better because it can be used whenever you want it to meet demand on the grid. We're not just moving into a renewable electricity market. We're moving into a much more reliable energy market. Yes, you've got it.
Well, the company, NextEra, is now working on more than 2 gigawatts, gig is big, of firm projects, combining wind, solar, and batteries. They're going to combine all three of them.
That's right. Yep.
Well, let's move along here.
We're up to Sunday, January 26th, and this is an item from Clean Technica.
It is that. The Nissan Leaf and the Uber tag team in London. It's an interesting story here.
Uber is getting a partner to help it electrify its fleet in the London area, and Nissan is getting a partner to help it sell a bunch of Nissan Leafs. More specifically, 2,000 Nissan Leafs will enter Uber's London fleet.
And these are like privately run taxi cabs.
Yeah. These will have 40 kilowatt-hour batteries offering about 168 miles per range on a single charge.
Doesn't sound like much, but the article goes into mention that it is.
It's so
you're talking about London.
How much mileage are you going to put on? These things are going to be spending, I mean, a typical taxi spends half its time idling.
Yeah.
And that means to these guys using no energy.
Shut it off. Yeah.
And, you know, how fast do they go? Do they go 70 miles an hour? No. And you know as well as I do, Tom, if as the speed goes up, the cost in terms of energy goes up exponentially.
Yep.
So, there you are.
Uber, as I mentioned, is a bunch of private taxi companies.
Yeah.
Okay. They got a clear air plan which aims to help the drivers upgrade to these electric vehicles. Okay, so Uber is going for it as well. They've added a clean air fee of 15 pence a mile,
Okay.
which will help drivers with the cost of adopting an electric vehicle. They didn't want these guys to go electric, so they've thrown incentives at them. Company wants to have all of its cars in London to be fully electric by 2025.
Which is not that far away.
And Nissan is involved in them because they're buying Nissan
Absolutely.
cars.
Absolutely.
And Nissan estimates that the Uber driver could save 3,500 pounds a year. That's more than $4,000, I think.
One of the things that I find interesting about this is that Japanese car companies have not been particularly interested in all-electric vehicles.
Well, it's starting to get that way.
They're looking at things much harder.
China is eating their lunch over in Asia.
Well, that's partly because Donald Trump, put a trade war on China. And everything, it just seems, I'm not going to go there. Okay.
We won't touch that.
Okay.
We got a picture coming
We
up
have a
here. Let's
picture
take a
and an
look at
item
it.
from CNN.
There's a picture of a polluted river.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you'd call that pollution or not. It's farm runoff is what it is.
Yeah, that can be completely polluting. I mean, the big problem with
I'm thinking of chemicals, when I think pollution. But
farm
that's
runoff,
pollution, yeah.
farm runoff is chemicals, and
it's damaging.
It's damaging if you think about the problems with Lake Champlain.
I was just thinking
a lot
about
of the
that.
problems
It's
there
coming
is
from
phosphates.
farm
Yeah,
runoff.
absolutely.
Well, Trump's dismantling of environmental regulations unwinds 50 years of protections.
Trump's first 2 years in office, the EPA put its efforts into reversing regulations, and in the third year, other agencies took up the environmental regulation rollbacks. This even extends to some protections established under the 50-year-old Clean Air Act. This was stuff that was put into effect by Richard Nixon, who obviously is a socialist.
Absolutely.
It was put into effect by Ronald Reagan, who was a socialist.
Man,
Man, I'll tell you, it really galls me.
Interesting 2-minute video here of Donald Trump saying, energy-efficient light bulbs make me look orange.
I'm sorry,
He doesn't
Donald.
even know what he's talking about.
He looks orange, but not because of energy-efficient light bulbs.
He's orange. That's his
As a matter of fact, the light bulbs that are making him look orange might be energy efficient because they might be
They're LEDs.
LED, but they're UVs.
But most of the LED light bulbs that are on the market today make you look bluish.
Yeah. You see, this is an after effect. It's because he's exposing himself to these things in order to look tan. You can tell because he's got white areas around his eyes.
Well, Trump has repeatedly vowed to ensure, that's in quotes, that the United States has, quote, cleanest air and cleanest water. But his administration's efforts to slash environmental regulations have been extensive. He wants the cleanest air and he wants the cleanest water, but he doesn't want any environmental regulations.
Donald Trump is a kind of person who could say, but clean air always has NOx in it.
Yeah.
The NOx cleans the air. Carbon dioxide makes it possible to grow more vegetables.
Well, he's got a whole bunch of rollbacks here, and it's early enough in the show, I think I got time to read them. He's going to withdraw from the Clean Power Plan.
Well, he's already done that.
He's going to scale back the requirements for storing and releasing waste from coal power.
There you go.
He's blocked stricter energy requirements for light bulbs. Well, I got news for him. Economics is going to take over.
Why would anybody make incandescent lights? I mean, there was a time...
Because they're still making slide rules.
I don't know of anybody who's making slide rules.
I don't think they
are.
are.
And, there are reasons why people should buy incandescent lights for specific applications, but not enough to carry them in hardware stores.
Well, if you've got one that's in a closet that you turn on for about 15 minutes a year, it doesn't make sense to change that light bulb.
If you happen to live in an area where you're in a tropical rainforest,
Yeah.
where everything is wet all the time,
Yeah.
then you leave that light bulb in your closet on
dry out
all
the
the time
closet.
to dry it out. I mean, it's that simple. Everybody who lives in a tropical rainforest should have one,
Yeah.
you know, but here in Vermont, in New England, in the Northeast, in any part of America north of the Mason-Dixon line, in any part of America south of the Mason-Dixon line, except for areas in tropical rainforests, you know.
Let's get back to
no need for them.
what his rollbacks are.
Oh dear.
Okay, he's changing the rules which assess the environmental impacts of projects such as mines, highways, and pipelines.
Of course.
He's freezing fuel economy standards. They're still arguing that one. He's got major downsizes of protected lands, like in Alaska.
And
he's
people-
expanding more than 180,000 acres for logging.
And people are dying as a result
Because
of
that.
this.
This is a big one right now. He's talking about clean water and clean air, but he wants to rescind the Clean Water Act.
Yep.
Changes in the Endangered Species Act
Yep.
to open up areas for oil and gas extraction. Changes to the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, and increasing allowable levels of herbicides. So everything he's doing is going opposite to what he says he wants.
Okay, Tom, we've got 8 items in 18 minutes. You were wrong about the amount of time we've got left.
Oh, I'm looking at the time. Yeah, we got 17 minutes, 57 seconds.
There you go.
I'm looking at the green
So we
numbers,
should should go through this.
Yeah, let's move.
Okay.
Ambitious zero-emission Tokyo plan wins praise, begs for action.
Okay, this is from the Japan Times. Last year, Governor Yuriko Koike revealed the zero-emission Tokyo strategy, Tokyo's long-awaited plan to transition to clean energy. Tokyo metropolitan government plans to spend over 74.6 billion yen, which is $683 million, to achieve a net zero carbon emissions goal.
Well, the article tells us what they want to do, and it makes sense, so check it out.
Yeah. Monday, January
picture coming up
27th,
here.
we have a picture of an offshore wind farm and an item from Renews.
Yeah, the other one was onshore. This one's offshore.
There you go.
Oh, this one's...
Either that or it's in a blue field.
Yeah, consortium plans Ostend Green Hydrogen Drive.
A Belgian group is planning to construct a facility at the port of Ostend by 2025 to produce green hydrogen from offshore wind-generated electricity. According to 3 project partners, Highport will cut CO2 emissions in Flanders by about 500,000 to 1 million tons annually.
This is a new way of storing electricity, basically.
Yeah, and
they're
again-
making hydrogen, and they've figured out already how to sell that hydrogen.
Oh, selling hydrogen should be easy. This is another example of balancing supply and demand.
Yeah,
And
that's what's
you
going
know,
on.
if the
They got-
wind turbines are not going to meet demand that's
They can
online,
store it.
they can.
And this is
make
another way of
hydrogen.
storing it. Sell
Right.
it, turn it into hydrogen and sell hydrogen.
Hydrogen can be sold as an alternative to natural gas.
Yep.
It can be used to power vehicles. It can be used to heat
lot of-
buildings.
lot of-
It can be used in chemicals. It's a
lot of
lot of
uses
use
for hydrogen.
Okay.
And we'll be hearing more about it because it's in many cases it makes a lot of sense.
Yep. VICE has brought us this next item.
Yeah, we got one here coming up, the climate change solution that climate deniers can get behind.
Republicans and Democrats generally disagree about climate change, but they're likely to agree on renewable energy and clean energy. Among Republicans, 77% agree with funding more research into renewable energy, and 79% are behind generating renewable energy.
Well, they give us an example here where in 2013, Georgia's Republican Utility Commission wants to get more energy from solar. And the Sierra Club and the Tea Party group, the Tea Party, got together behind them.
This is Debbie Dooley, who is the head of the Atlanta Green Tea Party, who has just been working and working and working.
The Green Tea Party, right? The Green Tea Party.
Right. She's been working and working and working
Yep.
to get more, solar energy more available to people in Georgia. And the reason for this is settled actually in libertarian ideas and Republican conservative ideas. The idea is we don't want monopolies, and the utilities are monopolies. We want to have solar power for everybody to have at home. And that's
nice.
where the whole thing
I wouldn't have any
starts.
problem with that.
Okay,
We've got another
Newsweek.
picture coming up,
We do indeed.
and
That's a glacier in Antarctica.
looks like Mount Everest, but it's not.
No, it's actually kind
a
of
glacier.
small compared to Mount
Well,
Everest.
that's an Antarctic glacier,
Yep.
and I think it's the one this article is about.
No, it's not. It's one I
yeah?
found because I couldn't get a good picture of the one that this article is about. You know, they said only 4 people had really been on this Waits Glacier to
Yeah, the article
investigate it
says that,
before
yeah.
that. And Thwaites Glacier is the size of the UK. So, you know,
This is a big
huge,
glacier.
Big
It's a very
glacier.
interesting article.
It is.
200 years since Antarctica was discovered, the continent faces irreversible global melting.
On
Well, that's true, but it's going to take a long time.
It is. On January 27th, the 200th anniversary of the discovery of Antarctica, glaciologists say the continent is approaching a tipping point. I got news for you. I think it's well past the tipping
It
point.
could very well be, and the article says that.
Pass it, and nothing will prevent the glaciers from melting, even if we cut all of the greenhouse gas emissions overnight.
Nothing will prevent the glaciers from melting, but as I said, it will take a long time.
It'll take a long time. They're saying that Thwaites Glacier would put out, what was it, half a meter? It would raise the sea levels half a meter?
I think it said something like that.
And
Yep.
one of the things that's interesting about this is that Thwaites Glacier is not technically on land.
No, it's floating in the ice.
It's not floating. That's the
It's-
deal.
it's on the floor.
resting on the floor of
Yeah.
the ocean, which means it might as well be on dry land.
Well, there's a 3-minute video here that's worth looking at called Green Icebergs.
Yep.
Okay, and a quick takeaway is Antarctica's ice sheets account for the largest fraction of potential sea level rise, with the capacity to drown coastal cities.
You know, I just
They
had
got
a frightening
lot.
thought.
Huh?
I
Yeah.
had a frightening thought. Suppose that glacier started to feel like moving upwards in the water and lifted itself off the ocean floor.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the weight of that glacier would be sea level rise. The whole thing. I'm thinking that we could see very rapid sea level rise as a result of that glacier.
I don't think it would, though, because
It probably would.
floating ice, like ice cubes in your drink, as they melt, they don't give
I
you-
know that.
Yeah.
It would have the effect of all the melting happening at the same
at
time.
the same time.
Anyway, it's not going to happen in the next few years because
Well, the
this is
article
a
says
big,
maybe
tall-
millions of years, perhaps thousands of years at the absolute fastest.
I don't think it's thousands of years, but they are talking about 20 inches of sea level
Well,
rise.
that is not to say we
by
won't
the-
notice an impact.
Yeah.
Rising sea levels will be one of the most noticeable effects.
Right, and it said that something like 5%, I forget the exact figure, but of the sea level rise that's already gone on came from this glacier.
It's an interesting article.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to read it because I kept checking things they were saying.
Yeah.
It's a good article.
Okay, we're up to Tuesday, January
We go on to
28th,
that.
and we have an item from PV Magazine Australia.
New Tasmanian Premier to take on climate change with renewables. Now, this is interesting. We've talked a little bit about Australian politics. It's pretty hard for us to understand.
Yeah,
because the Liberal Party is conservative.
Yeah. I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name. I suspect it's Gutwein, but
That sounds good
it
enough.
might be it might be Gutwein. It's a German derived
Gutwein.
name. Gutwein.
Yeah.
Last week, Peter Gutwein replaced Will Hodgman as the leader of the Liberal Party in Tasmania and was sworn in as the state's 46th premier. Soon after, Gutwein announced that he would become the first Tasmanian Liberal minister for climate change.
When you're hearing Liberal, think conservative.
This is like, you know,
Just like the Republicans.
like a conservative Republican taking over a state in the United States as the governor and saying, and by the way,
We're going to do renewables.
we're going to do renewables.
Well, the Premier seeks to lead Tasmania, which is a state of Australia, to renewable energy future. And this is more of this green hydrogen that we just talked about.
Yep.
Green hydrogen can be produced inexpensively, and a large-scale, cost-competitive green hydrogen production industry could be developed.
Yep. Okay, we've got, I think, 5 items more
Well, we
in
got
less
another
than 10
picture
minutes.
coming up here.
We have a
so-
picture. This is a weird picture.
Well, it's a picture of a hole.
It reminds me of a painting I did when I was in 9th grade for an art class, and I was given a C- on it.
Well, as it says here, it's a view down a hole scientists made in Thwaites Glacier.
Okay, this is from BBC.
Antarctica melting. Journey to the Doomsday Glacier. Doomsday Glacier. And it's a good article, interesting, long article, a lot of pictures. It'll take you a week to read it.
That's probably correct. It's been described by glaciologists as the most important glacier in the world. Some call it the Doomsday Glacier. Roughly half the size of Britain, Thwaites Glacier already accounts for 4% of the sea level rise and is melting increasingly rapidly. It holds enough water to raise the sea levels by half a meter.
By half a meter.
Now, we
That's just
talked
what you
about
said.
this, so maybe what you should do is skip to the next one.
Well, there's a quick takeaway here.
Go ahead.
Understanding what is happening at Thwaites is essential for scientists to be able to predict future sea level rise accurately. Okay, the ice in West Antarctica floats. Researchers want to drill down almost a half a mile of that ice to get access to the seawater to find out where it's from and why it is attacking the glacier so vigorously.
It's really...
The glacier's melting
yeah.
fast, and they want to know why.
Okay. Our next item is from CNN.
The Pacific Ocean is so acidic that it is dissolving Dungeness crab's shells.
The Pacific Ocean is becoming more acidic, and that is taking its tolls. The Dungeness crab is vital to commercial fisheries in the Pacific Northwest, but lower pH levels in its habitat are dissolving parts of the shells and damaging their sensory organs, the study found.
Well, I could talk about it, but let's move on.
Okay, Wednesday.
This will be the last day.
Yep. So...
General Motors will convert the Hamtramck factory to EV and autonomous vehicle production. And let's take a look at one of their autonomous vehicles.
GM says it will manufacture EVs and the Cruise Origin. That's a picture of the Cruise Origin.
We've talked about that on the show.
Have we?
There's something like it.
Well, a lot like it, yeah.
Yeah.
An autonomous electric shuttle at the Hamtramck factory. Gerald Johnson, Executive Vice President of Global Manufacturing for GM, sent a letter to factory workers telling them the news. Now, this factory was in trouble because of strikes, and people were worried that it was going to get closed down.
Well, they're building Cadillac and Chevrolet sedans there, and people stopped buying sedans.
Yeah.
Okay, so they've got surplus, and you're right, they were thinking about shutting it down.
And what we're moving from is a position where local people were worried about their jobs to a position where now they've got thousands of jobs available. Or
Well, yeah,
coming up, not yet available.
they've shifted gears big time.
Yes.
And they're getting ready for what's coming. GM's going to offer 20 new fully electric vehicles by 2030. That's the first I heard that.
This is 20 new
Brand new ones.
Designs.
They're going to have
20
a Hummer electric pickup truck, and they're going to have a Cadillac electric SUV.
Arnold Schwarzenegger wanted a Hummer electric pickup truck.
Did he?
No, he wanted a regular Hummer, but he wanted it all electric.
Oh, okay. Well, he's going to have to wait a couple of years, but it's coming.
It'll be there. Okay, our second to the last item is from Renew Economy.
A big U.S. electric utility says near firm, we'll talk about that, renewables soon to be cheaper than fossil fuels.
This is important. The CEO of clean energy company NextEra, which we've talked about earlier in the show, NextEra Energy says wind and solar projects co-located with battery storage will be cheaper to operate than most fossil fuel powered plants by 2025. He expects the levelized cost of electricity from wind farms to be $20 to $30 per megawatt hour, and that is from near firm wind farms.
Well, they define that.
Okay, near
The term
firm
means that wind and solar plants will be close to providing round-the-clock power.
Exactly.
Thanks to the backing of battery storage.
Exactly. And this is, but the thing that's really interesting about this, Tom, is that what we're talking about is operating costs. So when the power plants are paid down, it's cheaper to run, to get power from a firm wind farm or even firm solar than from natural gas. And that means that natural gas plant has no reason to exist.
Yeah.
This is, we're not talking about building new plants here.
No,
we're talking about old plants.
Old plants going to be going offline.
We're seeing it already, but now we're going to see it more and more. This is what this guy who knows a great deal more than you and I put together, obviously. Or maybe he's been watching this show.
Well, let's move on to our last article here.
Okay, this is an item from Green Tech Media.
Picture coming up.
And we have a picture of a roughneck, or a roustabout, or a whatever he is.
Something like that. Roughneck, I think they call him, isn't it? Yeah. Well, in any case, he's an oil worker.
Which my mother, you know, used to use the word roughneck to talk about bullies and bad guys.
Yeah. Well, the article says Texas is the center of the global corporate renewable energy market.
This one is almost mind-boggling. Texas accounted for more than a quarter of all corporate renewable energy deals
it is almost mind-boggling.
in the world.
In the world.
The global market for corporate renewable energy deals surged 40% in 2019, reaching 19.5 gigawatts for new contracts. Texas' share of this was 5.5 gigawatts. This is big, big news.
Well, while big technology companies such as Google and Facebook continue to drive the overall corporate renewables market, there's growing demand from oil and gas producers like ExxonMobil and Occidental Petroleum.
They're putting in power purchase agreements for renewable energy to supply fossil fuels.
That's ironic. But that's exactly what's happening.
If there's anything that you can talk about that shows you that the fossil fuel industry is in trouble, it's the fact that they're turning to renewable energy for operations.
Well, it's also interesting because they're generating that renewable energy where they're using it.
Well,
in the Permian Basin.
Yes. And this is another thing about renewable energy which is really, really important. Renewable energy can be generated anywhere in the world.
Virtually anywhere.
And when you have battery storage, which we're getting now, you know, this last thing about the CEO of NextEra.
Yeah.
When you have battery storage as cheap as it is, you could baseload power has no reason to exist.
Not really, not anymore.
Not anymore.
They're getting firm energy without
They're getting firm energy without baseload power. There is no reason for us, and anybody who invests money in coal or natural gas or even nuclear, especially nuclear,
We'll be looking at some stranded assets, I think.
That's right. That is absolutely right.
It's economics.
It's
economics, guys. Coal's getting more expensive. Wind and solar are getting less expensive. Batteries are getting much less expensive.
And so the only
And
question...
there's other kinds of storage that they're...
The only question that we've got about climate change and energy, atmospheric quality, you know, the air pollution and so forth, the only real question is, how much are you going to allow people to suffer? Because you're not going to save money by making them suffer.
Yeah.
So what are you, basically, what are you doing here? Are you, you know, and that's what it comes down to.
The times they are changing.
The times they are changing. I'm going to put our last slide up, which is the one that says, "Have an entertainingly grand week, folks."
That's the slogan of the week.
Slogan of the week. Have an entertaining. You know, there are people. I have been told there are people who go to my blog because they want to find out how I said "have a good day." Anyway, you want to put us up, and we'll wave goodbye.
Adios.
We hope you come back next time. Bye, everybody.